Or I don't know. We have the separation of church and state. I need the separation of Twitter and state, or social media and state. I mean, think about it, because church communities and religious communities, they're huge, powerful political voting blocks, whether people don't want to admit that or not. Twitter is a huge political tool as well. There needs to be separation, not to mention the whole speech factor.
Yeah. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Indoctrination. I'm Maggie.
Olivia.
And this week, we are diving headfirst into the murky waters of tech censorship. So this past weekend, I was moving. It was one of the most stressful experiences of my life. Olivia came in clutch for us, though. She has collected all of the receipts from the Twitter hearings. If you didn't know, the Twitter execs in charge of Twitter's trust and safety pre-Elon Musk got hauled before Congress. So, Olivia, this looks super messy. What are we getting ourselves into
First
today?
of all, it was really fun to go through all those clips. I'm not going to lie. So thank you for moving so I had to do that by myself, because I was cracking up. I mean, we have Vijaya Gadde, who is the head of Twitter's trust and safety, looking so uncomfortable being questioned by Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
Mm-hmm.
We had Yoel Roth looking like he just got called to the principal's office. It was really funny. But to just give some background, because I know that not everybody read through the whole Twitter files, because I don't even know how many installments there were at this point. It was a lot. But to those who may not even be familiar with them at all, it was an ongoing series. I believe it actually is still going on today, of releases from Twitter's internal documents facilitated by Elon Musk once he bought the company. So once he bought the company, he was like, yo, we already knew that he had a problem with the bots, and that's why there was a little back and forth on if he would buy the company or not. But he was like, yo, there's actually way worse stuff going on inside of Twitter. So he released these files, basically published through a bunch of independent journalists. So it's people like Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss, Lee Fang, and Michael Schellenberger, I believe, are the four journalists that he published these Twitter file drops through. And I know there's been over a dozen at this point, I believe. So it's a lot. But to go over the main points, several factions of the government, state, local government, all the way up to the White House, have been in cahoots with Twitter. The FBI has been in cahoots with Twitter. They have both. And I'm talking about the Biden campaign. I'm talking about the FBI. I'm talking about independents, Republicans, Democrats. There are a lot of people who reported stuff to Twitter asking them to take it down. And Twitter largely obliged the government. So this revealed a lot of exchanges between different levels of the U.S. government and the Twitter censorship gods, who were basically dragged out before Congress. And they had to explain for a lot of the stuff that happened, and they did a horrible job. Let me just put that spoiler out there. They did a horrible...
Yeah. From what I've seen, it's pretty bad.
They did a horrible job. And so among the top takeaways, I would say, from the Twitter files was the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story. There's a debate going on in a lot of Republican or right-wing media spaces and in politics. Would that have changed the outcome of the election? Now, I don't know, but that's speculation. But all we can do is speculate, because we don't know. I mean, the Hunter Biden laptop story was not really made available before the election, and so maybe that would have changed people's minds. In addition, posts and accounts from medical professionals, like actual doctors from like Stanford, Yale, Harvard, people who were posting CDC data that was simply outdated, because as we know, during COVID, the CDC changed and went back and forth on masks, on mandates. Dr. Fauci changed his advice to people. So there were people who got banned for sharing CDC data from the beginning of the pandemic. And yes, this included medical professionals. And then there was also this trends blacklist that the public didn't even know existed, I don't think. But the trends blacklist had basically like almost every like large conservative influencer. So like even the ones who were like more mainstream and ones who I would not consider to be like necessarily anti-establishment, like Charlie Kirk, they were on the trends blacklist. So if you were just like the average run-of-the-mill like
milquetoast
TPUSA conservative,
that's
they were censored. So think about people like me. Think about us. Like if they're censoring Charlie Kirk, you know I was on that.
Yeah.
And so a December installment of the Twitter files found that basically Twitter had acted as a subsidiary of the FBI, and that the FBI had paid them millions basically to censor accounts that they deemed to be however type of harmful that the FBI deemed them to be. And, the FBI is law enforcement, but I also don't trust them as a big federal agency. So I don't think that was,
Right, they're at the beck and call of the federal government and their interests. So what specific interests does the FBI have with Twitter censorship?
And banning accounts. One may ask, one may wonder, because clearly they had an interest in suppressing COVID and suppressing the FBI, or in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. Like, these were things that the FBI was like, oh, this is national security. Sorry, we can't talk about this. And so they asked Twitter to essentially do that. And so actually one more specific event from the Twitter files. This is actually from the most recent installment of the Twitter files shared by Matt Taibbi on Twitter. Y'all know, do you know Angus King? He's a senator from Maine. He's one of the
he's
the only independent senators we've ever had, right? So you would think you'd be a little bit more, above the fray of like partisan politics.
Yeah, one would hope.
But no. It was bad. It was really bad. So Angus.
Okay, what did Angus King do?
Senator Angus King, who has been in office for a while, like he's definitely a career politician. He gave Twitter a list of 354 accounts to ban or to censor, and he gave them a spreadsheet listing the reasons why they should ban these.
Not the Excel spreadsheet.
And it was an Excel. I looked at the whole.
That is so petty.
I literally went through the 354 member list of this. By the way, he sent a similar list to Facebook with like 140 more accounts. And on the reasonings for reporting, they were liked a tweet from Eric Brakey. Now, if you know Eric Brakey, he was the Republican.
Are you serious?
A YAL endorsed candidate, a Young Americans for Liberty endorsed candidate.
You're joking, Olivia.
Liking tweets from Eric Brakey, retweeting tweets from
petty.
Eric Brakey, following Eric Brakey, and he did it for the Democratic candidate in that election too.
Wow.
I forget his name, but he did it for both sides. So the independent, who was supposed to be above partisan party politics, dirty politics, he was trying to censor supporters of the Democratic and the Republican candidate, who is Brakey, who's I'm friendly with, who's a friend of the Liberty Movement. So that was crazy. I just wanted to bring that up because
that is horrifying.
Literally, and I didn't have time to go through all of the 354 accounts, but I picked 10 random ones just to see if Twitter had listened to the Angus King team, because it was actually the campaign manager, you can see in the emails, who sent the document over. Out of the 10, only 2 were not permanently suspended when I checked, and those were just selected at random.
So like this random senator from Maine, no offense to Maine, I love Maine.
It is kind of random.
A lot of people up there. This random Senate candidate has that much pull with Twitter that they just get to silence supporters of his political opponents.
Yes. And so Brakey obviously tweeted about this and was like, yo, what gives? These are my supporters.
Absurd.
These are my voters. Yeah. And it was just insane. And so Angus King, I don't think has released a comment on that yet, because it just happened like 2 days ago. But yeah.
Well, it makes him look horrible. Oh, yeah. And kind of fragile. Like, you can't handle this, like, people supporting your opponent being on Twitter. No. And liking
there was
their
one,
tweets.
the funniest one,
insane.
I went through the Facebook list too. The funniest one was he reported an account on Facebook, and the reasoning was, I guess they had liked something or whatever that was pro Berkey, but the reasoning that they reported the account was because their place of work was listed as the Krusty Krab. Like, you know how kids do the meme, like they work at SpongeBob Krusty Krab on Facebook? That's why they reported it to Facebook.
That's so funny. That was like such an early Facebook thing to do.
All my friends from high school who I have on Facebook, those are the type of people to still use Facebook, by the way. They have Krusty Krab in their bio. Like, it's just a meme.
That's so funny. Do you remember that weird, this is such a tangent, do you remember that weird trend where people would put like their nickname in quotes as their middle name? So it'd be like Maggie Root Beer Anders or something weird like that. That was not mine. That was not
what
mine.
Made that come to your mind?
Promise.
I don't believe you, by the way.
I think I was friends with someone on Facebook who had root beer in quotations.
Okay.
Weird.
All right.
The early internet was a strange place.
It definitely was.
It was so much nicer though, because now we have to worry about like politicians and the federal government, the FBI specifically, being in cahoots with our social media platforms.
It's actually
to
crazy.
censor us.
And
Yeah.
back then when the internet was good, it was actually kind of like a lawless wasteland. But that's how it should be. Okay, that's how free speech is. And we're
Yeah.
gonna see once we go through all the clips. It was actually Democratic Representative Katie Porter who like literally blatantly said like we can't have a lawless wasteland on Twitter. But
Yeah.
anyway.
I think she calls it a hellscape.
Yeah, hellscape. I was like, that's a little dramatic.
Yeah.
But to actually get into the hearings, just a little bit more of the background. So the hearings were in front of the Republican-led House Oversight Committee, and they basically gathered to question former Twitter executives. I'm probably going to butcher some of the names, but Vijaya Gaddy, Yoel Roth, Anika Collier, Navaroli, and James Baker. So these are all quite interesting people for a couple different reasons. So Gaddy, she made $17 million in the last year before Elon Musk took over at Twitter. So just to put that in perspective, this is how much these people were getting paid to censor, to ban, to silence, to basically just honestly, I mean, I contributed to ruining the careers of people, like some of the medical professionals and stuff who had their accounts deleted. So really, really horrible stuff. Anyways.
It's a pretty lucrative career. Didn't she go on Joe Rogan?
Yes.
I feel like I watched her Joe Rogan appearance where she essentially downplayed all claims of censorship.
I was actually surprised she went on Joe Rogan. So honestly, props to her for that. But she really failed during that interview too.
Right. Well, that was like they were trying to do some outreach to mitigate scandal because it was very clear that so Alex Jones got censored off the internet for a while, and then like in quick succession, several other more like weird, wacky people on the political spectrum got censored. People. And I was like, that's not going to happen to just regular people. And then it was like in 2020, boom, everybody. No. I had more like leftist kind of trolley accounts that I was friends with who also got censored.
Interesting.
Because they would make fun of politicians and then boom, like their accounts would get wiped.
Can I point something out? Sorry, real quick. This is, I'm not calling you out, but this is a mistake a lot of people have made, and I've seen a lot of people express similar sentiments that you just did. When they came for Alex Jones, I didn't think they were going to come for me. When they came for Laura Loomer, they're conspiracy theorists. They're a little wacky. Yeah, wacky. I didn't think I totally get what you mean when you say they're wacky. They're objectively wacky. But that doesn't. The same reasons that they use to censor them are the same reasons that they use to censor people like us.
It's kind of like that meme where they were like, first they came for blah, blah, blah.
It is exactly
and
that
I did
meme.
Nothing. And it's like, but that's why I mentioned it, because when I first saw all of this censorship happening, and it was maybe in the late 2010s, I thought, okay, this is not great, but like objectively, this thing that someone said is bad. So like, as long as I don't say this thing, they're never going to come for me. Not that the censorship was good, but it's just like, well, I'm not out here saying such and such bad thing. And then it just went off the rails because they realized, oh wait, we can just do this.
Yeah. It don't
and that
work like
that culminated into the literal president being wiped off of Twitter, which is just mind-blowing. I mean, the reasoning they used could make sense to some, but like, that's crazy. And one point I want to make before we really get into this is all of this, meddling by politicians and the government really goes to show that Twitter is such a powerful political tool. And I think the reason that is so true is because Twitter is the real free press, right? There is no real monetary incentive for most posters. So they can just say whatever they want and real information can actually get spread. Misinformation, this propagandist word that we keep hearing getting thrown around, can be on Twitter as well. But this is about being a smart consumer, and this all of these, the Twitter files just really make me feel like I can't trust Twitter to decide what is true or not for me. You know, like the
Even
past
under
2
Elon.
years have really shown
Even
that.
under Elon, under
Yeah.
no circumstances
Yeah.
can we trust everybody that's on Twitter or to trust them to not censor
Yeah.
people. And I mean, to your point,
Mhm.
what other social media platform, what other website are people breaking the news in real time like Twitter? Like
Right.
politicians, congressmen, they're releasing press releases, they're giving their first
Mhm.
statements on a lot of major topics on Twitter. Meanwhile, their staffers aren't even updating their Facebook or Instagram pages in weeks or months. Like it's everything is really on Twitter. And before we jump into reviewing the actual
Mhm.
clips from the Twitter hearings, I just wanted to break down who these people, Gaddy, Roth, Navaroli, and Baker, actually are, because it's really important to understand just how much power. So we know Gaddy made $17 million
Yeah.
a year.
That's
She was the head
insane.
of legal policy and trust at Twitter. So that's really broad, but her role included handling issues such as harassment, misinformation, and harmful speech. Now, harmful hate speech, I put that in the same bag. I don't think that harmful speech needs to be necessarily relegated or censored, because it's so not
Mhm.
it's such not an objective term. They view a lot of
Yeah.
different things that I wouldn't view as harmful necessarily. Harassment, okay.
Yeah.
Misinformation, again, such a broad term, such a propagandized term, as you said, so don't trust it.
Mhm.
Anyways.
Misinformation according to whom?
Exactly.
And we found out it's the government
Exactly.
who has a vested interest in not always telling
And a
us
lot
the
of that
truth.
17 million, I guarantee, came from the millions that the FBI was paying them. The FBI was
Crazy.
paying Twitter millions.
Crazy.
Anyway, so Yoel Roth, he was the head of trust and safety, and he led a 220-person policy threat and investigation team responsible for Twitter's content moderation. Now, that's a direct quote from his website. He is very proud of the fact that he led a 220-person team
Mhm.
that censored people. He targeted, again from his website, misinformation, election security, and bots and spam.
They did a bad
They
job
did
with
a,
the
I was
bots.
about to say, they
I'm
did
gonna
a
be honest.
horrible job. Elon Musk found that
Yeah.
Twitter basically defrauded him when they gave him a number of bots, and it was actually way higher than it actually was. So Roth just did a horrible job, and he's one of the people that I really liked
Mhm.
seeing squirm in the clips, because he has a lot to answer for, and I don't know how much he made. I'm sure he made a lot too, and again, it's a lot of money from the government. Navaroli, she was actually a former policy official on the team, and she was not an executive, but she was designing Twitter's content moderation rules. And in July, she testified under the condition of anonymity, I believe, at the January 6 hearings, that Twitter had been unfairly letting Trump use the platform to spread hate and misinformation. So basically, she was like, the fact that Twitter didn't ban Trump before the January 6 happened, that means it's Twitter's fault. And then, as we know, right after January 6
Wow.
happened, Twitter banned Trump from their platform. So we have her to thank for that.
And she was designing the moderation guidelines.
Yeah, so her thoughts went into that, which is funny because
Yeah.
the moderation guidelines, maybe she just didn't have as much pull as we were led to believe, because the Washington Post did a really funny puff piece on her where they
Mhm.
basically acted like she single-handedly saved the country. This is a quote: "Navaroli is the most prominent Twitter insider known to have challenged the tech giant's conduct towards Trump in the years before the Capitol riot. Now, in her 30s and living in California, she worries that speaking up about her role inside Twitter on January 6th could lead to threats or real-world harm." Okay.
This is very gaslight gatekeep
It's
girl boss.
very gaslight gatekeep girl boss. And on one hand, kind of love that for her. On the other hand, it's horrible for free speech and everyone in the country.
Yeah.
So stop gaslighting, gatekeeping, girl
Yikes.
bossing. And I just love how it's funny how they just mentioned, oh, now she's in her 30s and living in California. Like, okay, I'm in my 20s and living in California. Like, what does that have to do with it? But and then we get to Baker, and I actually didn't know he was Twitter's lawyer. I remember Baker's name because he was a top FBI lawyer, and he was really entrenched in the whole like dossier situation. So that's a whole other.
So we've got the revolving door thing happening.
You see what's happening.
Okay.
You see what's happening. So
I don't like this.
we already don't like
I
this.
don't like this at
So
all.
he was deputy general counsel, one of Twitter's main lawyers, and he was fired by Elon Musk in December over his alleged suppression of internal documents about blocking the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop story. So it's a full circle. After the first Twitter files dropped by Taibbi, there was a delay in the second drop that was supposed to happen that following weekend, and it was because of Baker, who was still working for Twitter at the time. So when Elon Musk came in and like immediately cleaned house, Baker was still one of the top Twitter lawyers. I guess they trusted him even though he was a top lawyer for the FBI. So Taby, after the schedule delay of the second drop of the Twitter files, he tweeted, "We can now tell you part of the reason why. On Tuesday, Twitter Deputy General Counsel and former FBI General Counsel Jim Baker was fired. Among the reasons, vetting the first batch of Twitter files without knowledge of new management." So basically, Elon Musk kind of explained that in the same Twitter thread. He said, "Baker, a former top FBI lawyer, was discovered to be secretly vetting the internal Twitter documents before they could be reviewed by the journalists." So the journalists were Taby, Barry Weiss, etc., leading to a delay in the release of more material related to the company's censorship scandal. In light of concerns about Baker's possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue, he has exited from Twitter today. So that was in December.
So he really held off just so he could
literally
get in his last
he went into the Twitter files before it was sent to the journalist and try to kind of have his way with it and kind of make it look less bad for the FBI, make it look less bad for the government. So yeah, somebody asked Musk later on in the thread if he had tried to explain himself. I just thought that was funny because Musk replied, yes, his explanation was ... unconvincing. And so yeah, he fired him right after that happened. But those were the 4 people that were drug out before Congress and got super embarrassed. And yeah, maybe we should start looking at the clips now.
I would not want to be on Elon Musk's
Me neither.
Because he just puts all of that out in public.
It was bad. It was crazy.
His argument was unconvincing. Okay, but yes, let's get to the clips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Twitter files were not just about Hunter Biden's laptop. Twitter files make it apparent Twitter worked overtime to suppress accurate COVID information. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is a professor of medicine at Stanford who once tweeted an article he wrote about natural immunity. Thanks to Elon Musk's release of the Twitter files, we learned some of his tweets were tagged with the label of Trends Blacklist. Apparently, the views of a Stanford doctor are disinformation to you people. I, along with many Americans, have long-term effects from COVID. Not only was I a long hauler, but I have effects from the vaccine. It wasn't the first shot, but it was the second shot that I now developed asthma that has never gone away since I had the second shot. I have tremors in my left hand, and I have the occasional heart pain that no doctor can explain, and I've had a battery of tests. I find it extremely alarming Twitter's unfettered censorship spread into medical fields and affected millions of Americans by suppressing expert opinions from doctors and censoring those who disagree with the CDC. I have great regrets about getting the shot because of the health issues that I now have that I don't think are ever going to go away. And I know that I'm not the only American who has those kinds of concerns. Another example of what Twitter has done to censor folks is from Dr. Martin Koldorf, a Harvard-educated epidemiologist who once tweeted, "COVID vaccines are important for high-risk people and their caretakers. Those with prior natural infection do not need it, nor children." The Twitter files reveal this tweet was deemed false information because it ran contrary to the CDC. So my first question this morning of Ms. Gaddy, may I ask of you, where did you go to medical school?
I did not go to medical school.
I'm sorry?
I did not go to medical school.
That's what I thought. Put a chart from the CDC on Twitter. It's the CDC's own data, so it's accurate by your standards, and you all labeled this as misleading. You're not a doctor, right, Ms. Gaddy?
No, I'm not.
Okay. What makes you think you or anyone else of Twitter have the medical expertise to censor actual, accurate CDC data?
I'm not familiar with these particular situations.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not. But this is what Twitter did. They labeled this as inaccurate. It is the government's own data.
Oh! Nancy Mace. I love her.
Lie.
I love her. A lot of people, I think, have criticized her over the last couple of years that she's been in office for maybe being a little bit too centrist or too moderate. Like, I wouldn't say she's a hard right conservative. And as from the tape, you can see she's not an anti-vaxxer. She wasn't like a conspiracy theorist. She got the vaccine because of the medical information that was provided, and now she is feeling regrets because some of the medical information was censored and not provided.
Gosh. I feel so bad for her. And that happened to a lot of people. And I just want to know why, I mean, we still kind of can't talk about it. Like, why can't we talk about
Like
it?
literally, YouTube will censor
know?
us if we go into the numbers and the statistics, so we just won't. But we will talk about how the fact that censorship led to people having these problems and people having these concerns today, including, United States federal, government officials. Like, that is crazy that was allowed to happen. And I love Gaddy is just like, I didn't go to medical school. Like,
Yeah, she looks very uncomfortable.
I'm sorry, it's so funny.
I think one of the posts said, like, that got censored, said, okay, if you get COVID, you don't need the vaccine because you have this natural immunity. And that got censored for disinformation.
Yes. So
what?
So Rep. Nace cited Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, and he was a Stanford he is a Stanford doctor who was on Twitter's trends blacklist from his first ever tweets since he started his account in August 2021. If you go to his account,
joking.
now he has over almost 400,000 followers, but from when his account was made in August 2021, his account was put on the trends blacklist because his first tweet, which appeared to coincide with the censorship, was promoting the idea of achieving herd and natural immunity over mandates. And we know now that this theory actually has a lot of weight behind it. But at the time, the CDC had been wishy-washy about it, and a lot of public health officials had been wishy-washy about it. But guess what? Only public health officials matter, not doctors, not Stanford doctors.
No, not the people
not
that
Yale
are
doctors.
actual experts in this field. And there was so much talk about, the science is settled. When
is the science ever settled?
When that phrase was really never, but the science was constantly changing. Like, the narratives the CDC was putting out were constantly changing. And as soon as a new narrative came out, it was like, do not talk about anything else we've ever said. This is the new narrative we have to run with. And everything else is misinformation.
Can we talk about...
And you're deceiving and killing people. When in reality, it's like, these were new vaccines that were coming out, and it's okay for people to be skeptical and have questions. And the fact that there was so much censorship happening around them, and the government was pushing them so hard, and there were so many mandates, and people were being forced to do this, that's what caused people to have questions.
Yep. I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, the CDC and Dr. Anthony Fauci, they said if it's not an N95 mask and if you're not a nurse, you don't need to wear one. I recall that announcement being made. And so everybody was like, okay. Now they switched the science, and science is a process. So maybe they found that they thought that they found it would have been more beneficial for masks after the fact, but they censored people who pointed out that they first announced that they wouldn't be beneficial. It was disgusting, honestly.
Yeah. And, this is so clearly, like, the people at Twitter, I don't really feel like they had that much of a vested interest in censoring these voices. But the fact that
the government,
the FBI was coming in and all of these politicians were coming in and threatening them or giving them money, that to me is what made Twitter say, okay, we have to start inserting ourselves into this conversation. Yeah. But I have a serious problem with the fact that, one, the science was not settled. Two, the people that were skeptical ended up being right. And three, they just decided that everything that wasn't the government propagandist narrative was the only thing that people could hear. And Nancy Mace is a victim of that. So are tons of other people who now have health issues. Because guess what? Medicine sometimes has side effects, and people should be allowed to hear about that. We should be allowed to discuss
it. I know. That's so crazy that we're allowed to that we're not allowed to do that, honestly. But and I agree with you. I mean, unless Vijaya Gaddy is a very good liar, which she may be for $17 million a year, she looked kind of stunned and baffled. She was like, "No, I'm not a medical professional. We just tried our best to listen to." Oh, listen to who? Yeah. Listen to who? Because you definitely listened to somebody who was telling you to do that. I tried to listen to public health officials. Like, no, girl. No.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into this more later, too. But we saw so many politicians and the federal government coming in. And again, we'll get into this. But asking Twitter to silence accounts, take down tweets, blacklist certain trends. And Twitter is thinking, okay, if we don't comply with them, they're going to pass all of these rules and regulations that are going to constantly shift and change. and we're always going to be trying to play catch up. So it's just easier for us to do this, right? Which is why typically I would say, hey, Twitter's a private company, like let them do what they want. But those rules don't apply when the government itself is getting itself involved and the private company is being coerced into silencing people.
No.
That is a free speech problem.
And there was people on both sides who I considered to be libertarians and conservatives who were like on both sides of the issue. They were both kind of wrong. So a lot of Republicans, and this is not to generalize, but I know a lot of Republicans, including a lot of Trump supporters, were for repealing Section 230 because of the purported censorship that Twitter as a private company made. Now, that, I believe, is Twitter's right. We may not like it, right? But it's not a human right to have a Twitter account. It's not a human right to say whatever you want on Twitter. You could say whatever you want in the air to whoever you want that way. However, the problem arises when the government becomes involved, like you said. But still, there was a lot of people defending that, saying it's a private company. It's a private company. They can listen to the government if they want to.
Well, it's not.
The government
if
was
it's
paying
being
them.
coerced by the
government.
private.
They were on the FBI's payroll. The FBI sent them millions of dollars to do this. They made millions of dollars to do this. And as you can see by Gaddy's response, she doesn't know anything about medical policy. She doesn't know. She didn't go to medical school.
No.
She was listening to somebody, and the somebody that told her to do that was the government.
Yeah. And she, let's be clear, is just the face of this department, of this branch. And she was probably in the thick of it in Twitter every day. And I wouldn't necessarily hold her personally accountable. I mean, people do need to be held accountable.
I would, because she was making $17 million, and a lot of that was from the government.
Fair enough. But I wouldn't say she's necessarily the villain here. I would say it's the politicians that are
they're definitely worse.
Trying to coerce Twitter to be used as a political tool for them.
Yes.
You know, I think that's completely messed up. But at a certain point, politicians start to say, oh, well, the other side's using it. We have to use these tools that are at our disposal.
Well, this would be a good time to roll into the next politician who was questioning. It was Yoel Roth. And this is one of my favorite Congress people, too. It's Rep. Byron Donalds from Florida, if you want to roll the clip.
An email. Reference, this is Saturday, October 24th, 5:39 p.m., referencing 5 different tweets. This is with a Twitter email chain. Under the line, it's more to review from the Biden team. Does anybody have a comment on how much interaction was happening with the Biden team at Twitter with respect to tweets that they wanted Twitter to review? Ms. Gaddy, Mr. Roth?
I'm not familiar with this email.
So you're not familiar with this email, Mr. Roth? Are you familiar with this email?
Only from what's been reported in the Twitter files.
Did you ever have contact with anybody from the Biden team?
No, sir, I did not. We explicitly separated the teams that would interact with campaigns from teams like mine that were responsible for content moderation.
How big was the organization in Twitter that was actually working with campaigns?
I couldn't say for sure.
Did you ever have any contact with the DNC?
Directly? No, I did not.
Did anybody at Twitter have any contact with anybody at the DNC?
I think it's likely that somebody at Twitter did, yes.
Well, what does he know? Clearly nothing, or maybe he's, again, probably a really good liar, actually. But first of all, I know I have to say it again. I love just, like, literally just seeing him sit there while Byron Donalds is yelling at him, because he just doesn't even know what to say. He's like, I couldn't say, I don't know, that wasn't under my purview. Oh my God, how could you, ahead of Trust and Safety at Twitter, not know the organization that
Not know what's going on.
that was contacting campaign teams? So to make this clear, this was the Biden campaign team. This was prior to him entering office. But yes, as we've already gone over, the federal government, including the Biden administration, has already since been in communication with Twitter still after the election. But it still is problematic for me for a campaign team, a major presidential campaign team, to be, I mean, it was like 5 tweets. Like censoring 5.
I want to see the tweets.
I
Pull 'em
believe
up.
I believe that one of them, this is what was reported, so I actually haven't seen the link before they were taken down. What they said was that it was Hunter Biden, maybe like the naked crackhead pictures. At least one of them was. So it was Hunter stuff, which I find interesting because, again, the Republicans are saying if we knew all about the Hunter stuff before the election outcome would have changed. I think the Biden campaign knew that, which is why they're obsessed with censoring Hunter Biden stuff off of Twitter. I think they admitted that by doing that.
Right. And like the naked crackhead pictures were definitely salacious, but I think there was a story of corruption there with Ukraine that was much more
There's a little
damning
something
for
there.
the Bidens. Yeah, because as like salacious as it is to see the president's son like smoking crack and hanging out with hookers and stuff, like I personally, that doesn't affect my opinion of Biden, right? It makes me sad. Like that's just really sad to see.
Right.
Although I'm sure many voters would have had some things to say, some thoughts and feelings. But there was a deeper story there that was revealed by the laptop, and they were just quick to say, "No, this is a non-story. This is fake."
Yep.
Like,
They
what
said
do you mean
it,
it's
the
fake?
FBI.
Like, this is his own laptop.
The FBI said it was Russian disinformation. Clapper, he said it was Russian disinformation. The head of the intelligence agencies, they all said it was Russian disinformation. Now they're trying to walk it back.
Well, so of course Twitter's like, "Yep, you know what? We got to take care of this."
Well, and they did.
Of
And
course
they did
they
right
did.
before the
Yeah.
election.
That's insane.
So while it may be
and
speculation,
I don't know that it would have been the same in the reverse.
yeah.
Like if they had gotten that kind of information on Trump or his family, like
Yo, if Donald Trump Jr.
I don't
was
know.
naked smoking crack in Ukraine with and working with a Chinese energy conglomerate despite never working in the energy industry or sitting on a board of any major important firm before, and suddenly you're making millions of dollars in China and Ukraine, yeah, there would be a problem. There would be a massive problem. The way that the media
There would be a
obsessed
problem.
over Trump's dealings in Russia was insane for them to come up with really nothing substantial, and for this to happen. And let me just put it this way:
absurd.
now there is a special counsel investigating top secret or classified documents that Biden has had for almost 15 years, since he was in the Senate, since he was vice president, and they were stored in the garage at his Wilmington, Delaware home. During the same
Are you freaking kidding
during
me?
the same time period, guess who was also staying at the Wilmington, Delaware home? Hunter Biden.
Was it Hunter
Biden when
Biden?
he was going through
Oh my
his
gosh.
bender phase? So he had
That's
access
insane.
to these top secret
Oh,
governments
no.
while he was going through his bender phase and while he was working with Ukraine and the Chinese energy conglomerate. So can I just throw this out there that it's possible? This is speculation, but it's possible that the classified documents that Biden had left over from his time in the Senate and from his time as vice president, that contributed to 10% going to the big guy, which we know is Biden, like we know it's the president, the big guy, from the laptop and from the emails. So I think it's almost confirmed. It's pretty much confirmed that there was influence peddling going on. And I know it's speculation that the story could have changed the outcome of the election one way or the other, but I believe that the Biden campaign knew that, which is why they were censoring or trying to report everything.
When people deserve to know.
They deserve to know.
Because, yeah, at some point, in this clip, if you watch the longer form of the clip, you'll see that Twitter handled these just super casually, like this was something they
Right.
were doing all the time.
Right. It said more from didn't it
What?
say more from the Biden team? Am I tripping? Did it say more?
Yes, it said
Yeah.
more from the Biden. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Did you not think these emails would ever get released? Handled these. Like they're just, this is another task on the list every day. Let's censor news stories for the Biden
They
team.
don't give a
That's
crap. They don't give a
absurd.
crap. Like if the
absurd.
former vice president and the current Democratic nominee for president is just casually emailing me tweets, I'm like, I'm saying something more than more from the Biden team. They're so casual with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is like, you don't even know if the person on the other end was like trying to support Biden. This could be simply a practice that Twitter had put in place because they were trying to avoid regulatory blowback.
Could have been.
If they weren't playing ball with these politicians. Like that is the thing that makes the most sense to me, because all of these politicians were up in their DMs like over and over and over again.
Yep.
As was the FBI. And if I was a business owner, if I ran a private company and the government was constantly trying to regulate me, I would regulate myself.
And I believe
just so they
to be fair, or I guess nonpartisan, when Matt Taibbi released the Twitter files, he did say that while the vast majority of requests coming from campaigns, coming from the government to censor stuff to Twitter, that was from Democrats. But I believe he did also say that the Trump campaign had some emails in there as well.
I am not surprised in the slightest. There needs the separation
somewhere. I don't know. We have the separation of church and state. I need the separation of Twitter and state, or social media and state. I mean, think about it, because church communities and religious communities, they're huge, powerful political voting blocks, whether people don't want to admit that or not. Twitter is a huge political tool as well. There needs to be separation, not to mention the whole speech factor.
Yeah, these politicians cannot abuse this private company, this tool.
I mean, they can and they do, but they shouldn't.
I mean, they are.
Right.
It's messed up. I'm mad about it.
Yeah, I'm really mad. These might make you even more mad, because now we're going to look at some of the Democrats who had questions. So there are, the House Oversight Committee is led by Republicans, but their AOC is on it. Katie Porter is on it. We got some good people. So.
Well, they should be mad too, because Republicans were abusing this as well, right?
I mean, so let's just roll the clip. You'll see.
I just want to start off right here at the top here. This isn't even my line of questioning, but I'd like to submit to the record a Washington Post article now warning about Hunter Biden laptop disinformation, the guy who leaked it. Here's the deal. Before I even get into my questions, I think that the story here with the Washington Post reporting is that what they're saying right here, when the New York Post first reported in October 2020 that it had obtained contents of a laptop computer allegedly owned by Joe Biden's son Hunter, there was an immediate roadblock faced by other news outlets that hoped to corroborate reporting, as many did. The newspaper wasn't sharing what it obtained. New York Post had this alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter. Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset. I believe that political operatives who sought to inject explosive disinformation with the Washington Post couldn't get away with it. And now they're livid. And they want the ability to do that again. They want the ability to inject this again. So they've dragged a social media platform here in Congress. They're weaponizing the use of this committee so that they can do it again. A whole hearing about a 24-hour hiccup in a right-wing political operation. That is why we are here right now. And it's just an abuse of public resources, an abuse of public time. We could be talking about healthcare. We could be talking about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. We could be talking about abortion rights, civil rights, voting rights. But instead, we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story. I mean, this is an embarrassment. But I'll go into it. Ms. Navarro.
Don't go into it, please. That was enough out of you. Thank you very much. I have a lot of things to say about that, but I want to hear your reaction first, Maggie.
I'm just crying. She's just like, this is a waste of my time.
I don't want to do my job. Here. I get paid to be here. I don't want to get.
We could be doing so much other stuff. And it's like, that's not, the Hunter Biden laptop story is not the only thing we're talking about in the Twitter hearings. That's not.
It's just. I just want to. I want to scream. I want to scream, but instead I will channel my energy.
We're gonna be nice.
Yeah,
we're gonna be nice.
I want to channel my energy into something productive, which is breaking down the points. But I think it's really ironic that she, a socialist, is complaining about a waste of public resources and public time. Can we point that out? Can we just put that out there? Because what the heck?
I'm crying.
So she's like, we could be talking about abortion. We could be talking about free healthcare. We could be talking about women's rights. Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh my God, the president's son is influence peddling, a crackhead, and is sitting on a board of a firm in Ukraine, working with a Chinese energy conglomerate. It's like, all while he's been.
What are you even talking about? Why aren't we discussing this? That's the whole
point out the fact
problem.
That she called it at the end. She says half fake. It's the half fake laptop story. And throughout the whole thing, she's like, allegedly, he did this. It's really not alleged. He did this. It has
Do you remember that dossier that got published everywhere about Trump, like during the first, like the 2016
do I remember the
presidential
dossier?
elections?
Do I remember the dossier?
You know, the golden,
Yes.
was that like,
We were so interested in Trump's alleged sexual proclivities in a Russian hotel that we didn't even think to notice. We didn't even think to cover the fact that the son of the sitting president right now is influence peddling and selling the Biden name, aka selling the presidency, selling the White House, selling the country overseas. Sad.
very
It's
sad.
very sad. I have almost nothing else to say other than the fact that is sad. She is stupid. She doesn't want to do her job. She's sitting there complaining about wasting time and wasting resources and how she doesn't want to be there and how it's a half fake story. None of that was true. Literally, none of that was true. Anyways,
sad.
anything else on AOC?
I just want to say every clip I've seen of her that's come out is like
She's a little
she
hysterical.
assumes this different persona to get a viral clip. I'm just like, girl.
And that's not me being, I don't want that to be misconstrued as me being a misogynist for calling her hysterical. No, she's actually, did you see me mocking her hand? She was sitting there like, half fake, alleged, the New York Post. She's like talking with her hands too much. And I feel like she puts on a black scent when she yells. And it's just weird. It's just weird. It's just weird.
I didn't want to say it,
No.
but like she assumes a different.
It's the same. It's
like,
the Hillary Clinton
persona
thing.
in each
It's
video.
the Hillary Clinton thing. And she adopts the accent that Hillary Clinton did when she was like, I got hot sauce in my bag. That's what AOC sounds like when she's angry. What?
Oh God. I'm sorry, AOC.
I'm not.
Just be yourself, Queen. Just be yourself.
Okay.
Or maybe
No,
not.
she should resign. Is what she should do.
All right. Let's listen from Katie Porter, who is like now widely regarded as like the school teacher of the
Yeah.
Democrats because she always has her whiteboard out.
Whatever.
you know,
It's a
and,
gimmick.
like, is
It was cool for
drawing
like two.
flow charts.
It was cool
or
for the first
something,
two
and-
times she did it. Now I'm over
Yeah.
it. Let's go. Let's roll the tape.
Today's hearing gavelled in at 10 a.m. For nearly 6 hours.
Power outage.
We have been going back and forth about this supposed suppression of a single news story from a single outlet for a single day. This hearing has been, in its length, nearly 1/4 of the amount of time that Twitter users could not share the link. We are spending almost as much time screaming about this as this was ever a problem. Look, criminal activity is always a concern, but if there is criminal wrongdoing on Hunter Biden's laptop, that is a matter for the FBI and our law enforcement agencies. Today's hearing is merely an exercise in misinformation and disinformation, a free-for-all hellscape. That's what now CEO Elon Musk said Twitter would become if the platform became a place where anyone could say anything with no consequences. It is unbelievable to me that I am quoting Elon Musk, but that is how ridiculous this hearing has become. The Oversight Committee, like Twitter or any other social media company for that matter, cannot become a free-for-all hellscape where anything goes. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Wait, we wasted 6 hours here, but I spent 20 minutes wiping and erasing this white erase board because I wanted to have the perfect slogan. Like, that was crazy because if y'all know Katie Porter or if you've seen clips of her with the whiteboard before, she usually does like charts or she usually lists, she writes on it in real time. Like, she's not just using it as a protest sign, but this was just a protest sign. She had written it beforehand. It was like, it's a free-for-all hellscape.
Hellscape. You know what? Twitter is so much more fun when it is a free-for-all hellscape.
I love free-for-all hellscape.
Okay,
Twitter.
me and my friends just want to post.
We
it.
just want to post. We just want to post. What do we want to post? None of your business, but we just want to post.
Yeah. My favorite meme is like me when I post misinformation.
I just want to post.
Like,
I was going to post misinformation. Why is that so bad? No, but for real, I love how both AOC and Katie Porter are saying this alleged. If there's this information on the laptop, I'm like,
it's a single story. It's
It's
a
out
single
there.
news story. It's like, no, it is a massive story, and people should be allowed to talk about it. And minimizing the issue means that you're like abdicating yourself from having to
Yeah.
speak about the actual issue and refute the points that are being made, which they can't do, which is why they have to be like, oh, this was a single news story for a single day. And here we are spending, oh gosh, a dreaded 6 hours talking about it. Like, yes, I'm sorry that this is your job. I apologize that you have to go to
right,
work.
can I remind everybody that a typical
sit through
workday
this.
is like 8 or 9 hours, like 6 hours is not a long
Yes.
workday.
It's okay. You're gonna be okay.
And another thing, her just sitting there scolding everybody like it's some type of transgression. Like she is personally offended that people are worried about this. Leads me to believe that there's a little something deeper going on. And again, she was saying, well, this is a law enforcement matter. The FBI should be the ones focusing on this. The FBI is the ones that paid Twitter to delete this. Like, are we for real right now? Are we for real right now? And one more thing that I think is a lie.
Yeah, it's an appeal to authority
Yep.
that, like, oh, you know what? We just need to leave this with the FBI. Only they are capable of
Like, you are
handling it. It's
a
like,
United States representative, first of all, and you're complaining about doing 6 hours of work. And also, the other lie that I think that she said was, they were only censored for a day. I remember that during that time, you couldn't even post the link. You couldn't even send the link through a DM to somebody else. It would not send
Yeah,
that link to the DM.
I remember that.
That doesn't mean that people weren't censored and put on the trends blacklist after that, because we know that Charlie Kirk, even Dan Bongino, like people who were like mainstream conservatives, they were all put on the trends blacklist for sharing stuff like this. So it was not just
Yeah.
one day. It was not just 12 hours or whatever. People were censored for this. It was an ongoing issue.
You know what I really think this is, why they're trying to minimize it, is because they want to retain the ability to still do it, which I think is also why all of these like left-wing politicians that were allegedly using Twitter trust and safety to censor their opponents, they were all horrified, just shocked and horrified that Elon Musk took over. Notice Katie Porter making a slight against him. It was just the worst thing that could have ever happened, ever. I think they're upset that they have lost this incredibly valuable tool to censor their opponents.
I know.
I really think that's what it is. Okay, so Adam Schiff from California asked politely for Twitter to ban a journalist who had been critical of him and his House committee. And Glenn Greenwald said, Adam Schiff is the chair of the House Intelligence Committee with immense power over big tech and FBI/CIA. So when he politely requests that big tech platforms ban journalists who are his critics, it's inherently coercive. Facts.
It is.
Facts. Because they know that Adam Schiff can just go and say, okay, I don't like how Twitter's doing this now, so let's make it impossible for them to run their company.
No, I think your theory about Twitter bending at the knee for the government to avoid the regulatory rules, I think that's probably at least a great part of what happened. So they had the financial incentive because we know the FBI had them on their payroll. Literally, Twitter was acting as a subsidiary of the FBI. So we know that. And I believe that you're probably right that there was another motivation as well, which was Schiff, whoever was on the oversight committee, the Intel committee, people who would have a vested interest in Twitter and regulating Twitter. Yeah, it was definitely to appease those people as well.
Yeah, and because they have that committee assignment, they can just abuse this platform to bully their opponents. I'm disgusted. I am disgusted.
Me
right
too.
now.
I wish Angus King was on the House Oversight Committee so he could have sat there.
Me
That would
too.
just be so funny.
Yeah, I want to hear him talk. I need a questioning of Angus King.
A comment from the Angus King team. Oh my God, it's been a couple days. I don't think he said anything yet.
I
But
know.
maybe by the time this episode goes out, he'll have said something so we can update next
The
week.
silence is deafening.
It's deafening.
Angus King.
Yeah.
We need a comment. But yeah, this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened where the government goes like in a roundabout way and censors people. So In 1922,
Ooh,
this happened to
history.
the film industry. You may have heard of the Hays
Yes.
Code, which established decency laws in films. That only happened because the film industry was getting all of these threats and was facing thousands of really inconsistent policies that would have been easily changed at a whim that could have just completely killed their industry. So the industry decided to self-regulate. I would say that's not
But they're
that's
a
not
private company.
free market. Like
They're a
these are
private company,
not
Maggie.
these are not yeah, these are companies operating under duress. That's what I'm saying. It's
For
like
real.
putting a gun to someone's head
Literally.
and being like, do this. And then when that person does that, like saying, oh yeah, they did that on their own accord. It's like, no, that was not free will.
Yeah.
You know, like this is
So not
coercion.
to demonize
and that's what's been
everybody at
happening.
Twitter, because yes, they basically did have a gun to their head, but certain people were getting paid, and certain people, they knew that crap was wrong.
Oh
which
yeah,
is,
they were cashing
out, and they knew it was wrong, which is why they're lying about it now. So I'm not to take a lot of the blame off of their shoulders, but to equally distribute it as under a communist system onto the government as well.
Well, and the people at the top had to be amenable to
Gaddy,
politicians and
Roth,
the government
all
doing
those
this,
all
right?
those people that they dragged out there, they knew what was going on. Let's be clear on that. They knew what was going on.
Because honestly, like, let's talk a little bit about like post-Elon Twitter, because it's been shifting and shaping,
kinda weird.
but all of these accounts have come back, and it is possible for someone who has moral courage to come in like Elon and be like, no, this is how my platform is going to operate, and you can suck it, essentially.
And I will say, don't even think that Twitter is completely in the clear of, that gun to the head, like you just said, because we still see censorship on Twitter. Like, a lot of people are back, but I've still seen people getting banned for stupid crap and then coming back a couple of days later, and it's like, oh, it was a bug, it was a mistake, or whatever. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm hoping it's just them figuring it out. I'm not necessarily like an Elon Musk stan, okay? I'm not like a Tesla girl, a SpaceX girl, although, Elon, if you want to send me a Tesla...
Right, I will be a Tesla girl if you
feel
need me
free.
to be.
I will promo it for you. No worries. But I do feel like Twitter has been better, like user experience-wise. However, the algorithms have been slightly strange.
I feel like I'm less worried about
like
getting banned, so I think I'm a little bit more free with the things I say. But for the overall user experience, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it being better, just because there's been I don't know if you've noticed any glitches or bugs, and a lot of this is not even stuff I've experienced myself, but I've seen a lot of other people say for like a day they couldn't access their DMs, or a lot of stuff was bouncing back, or people, one of my friends actually, everybody was unfollowed from her account, so she had to go back and like follow everybody. So there's just been random stuff happening. Maybe that still happened under Elon. I also don't like how I believe they're going to start charging for stuff that was previously free. And if you've gone to business school, I didn't go to business school, but that's the first rule of business. Don't charge for anything that was previously complimentary. And so Elon was talking about charging for basically the two-factor authentication that, like, if you want to log in and it texts a message to your phone, that's going to be a Twitter Blue feature now, which is like, so now you have to pay extra to do two-factor
to have security and privacy.
So I don't like that at all. Don't like that at all.
I
do like Twitter Blue. Like, I like the other features on Twitter Blue, so I do pay for it. So that's not what I'm trying to say, that it's not worth it for the other features, but just I think that'll definitely be a net negative. And also, I don't like the this is just an aesthetic thing, but you know how it sees like how many people viewed your tweet? Now it's like next to the likes and replies. Just put that in the analytics back where it was. I don't want to see how many people viewed somebody else's tweet.
And other people don't need to see that.
I don't
like, that's not really
care to see how many other people viewed your tweet. And honestly, if I post a selfie and it says like 2,000 people saw it and it gets 200 likes, now my feelings are hurt, and now everybody knows that my feelings are hurt. So yeah, I don't like that it shows it publicly.
We're all gonna know people didn't like
Literally,
my
I don't
selfie.
like that. So
damn,
Elon, this is genuine advice from somebody who pays to use your platform. Take that crap away.
I need to get Twitter Blue.
I just like
I don't know why
liked
I'm
the
holding
check
out,
at first, but now everybody has a check, so now I'm just like, I don't really care anymore.
Yeah, I would love that preferential treatment in the algorithm.
It is nice
though.
to edit
That
tweets and
sounds
like you can
nice.
undo tweets if you notice a typo within like 10 seconds or whatever. You can undo it. Yeah,
Sounds
it's actually pretty
amazing.
nice for that.
Ugh. Yeah. Well, either way, I think this is a great place to wrap. I loved
Me
this
too. That was
episode. This
fun.
was so educational for me, Olivia. Like, I was kind of somewhat paying attention to the Twitter file releases, but like, I feel
Now
like
you're all caught up.
this gave me. Yeah,
So
sorry,
I
go
didn't mean
ahead.
to cut you off. I just meant to say like now you're all caught up because I honestly did not read through every single Twitter drop because like I said there were so many, but those were just the ones that I thought were very vital for people to understand. The FBI had them on their payroll.
Yeah.
The federal government told them to censor stuff, and now I just thought the Angus
Right.
King one was funny just because there were so many accounts, like 354 accounts.
so
And it was
petty.
the pettiest reasons. It literally said
Oh my
followed
gosh.
Eric Brakey, retweeted Eric Brakey. Like
Oh.
I was like, whoa, that is not a reason to ban somebody. But
Yeah.
apparently to Twitter and to Senator.
Someone was
King,
having
it
a bad night on Angus King's team.
I don't
or
even think he knows
something.
what Twitter
I think
is.
the
it was
spreadsheet
definitely like an
Yeah.
intern or somebody because
A
even some of the
staffer.
reasons one of the next to somebody's name that they were reporting on either Twitter or Facebook, it said in parentheses real but weird ? Like they knew that these were not bot accounts.
But
they knew that
weird. Yeah.
these were not spam accounts or anything like valid to be reported, but they're just kind of weird.
That's insane. Yeah, I just feel like the government and these politicians are so emboldened now, and I do feel like Elon taking over has been a serious threat. I do think these hearings in Congress, that's why you saw these politicians trying to minimize it so much. 'Cause it
It's a
was
half-fake laptop story.
uh-oh,
We
the
could be
jig is
here
up.
talking about abortion. Oh my God.
I don't want to talk about abortion. I want to talk about the Twitter trials. and
Right. I
Hunter
want to talk
Biden's
about the government like
laptop
literally
and
censoring
yeah.
its citizens. That is insane.
Yeah.
Hey, I would say this.
Sorry, we have different priorities.
I say this all the
AOC.
time,
Gosh.
but our founding fathers, they would have done the Revolutionary War. They would have risen up and overthrown the government for a lot less. Isn't that crazy? Like they literally censoring his speech,
I know. Yeah, we've become accustomed to it.
and now we're doing a podcast.
Either
about
way, yeah, right. Either way, you guys, this was so much fun, Olivia. I love doing this every week. We will be back again next week with a surprise new topic. If you would like, you can go ahead and subscribe, like the video, click the bell, and leave us a comment. You can follow me on Twitter at Liberty Anders. And Olivia, where
I
can
am
we find
also
you?
on Twitter at Rondeau Olivia and Instagram at Rondeau.Olivia.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much and have an amazing
Bye.
week. Bye.